Good morning, Ridge Road. This is our news for today, but please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated for a moment of silence.
Today is February 10th. Our quote of the day: find your greatness.
Encuentra tu grandeza.
Today's lunch choices are chicken bacon ranch pizza or sloppy joe. Your vegetables, sweet potato tots or raw veggie cup. Don't forget, you also get fruit, juice, and milk. Our weather today is a chilly 41 degrees with cloudy skies. There's a slight chance of rain. Ray Montague was born in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1935. She was an internationally registered professional engineer with the U.S. Navy who is credited with the first computer-generated rough draft of a U.S. naval ship. Ray Montague was born January 21st, 1935. She died October 10th, 2018.
In November 1943, the sub arrived in Little Rock, Arkansas. Admission was $1 for children and $5 for adults. One of those who paid to go into the submarine was 7-year-old Ray Montague.
She didn't know what was going on. She just knew that she was going out for, a day trip. They let her go down inside, and she crawled down, and she said it had a really unique kind of smell. But she just started imagining what it was like to be someone that was living inside that submarine. And so she looked around and saw all these dials and gauges and levers. So she asked, I guess what any little kid would want to know, how do you learn how to do something like this? And the person that she was talking to basically said, to do this, you have to be an engineer to build something like this. But don't worry, you don't ever have to worry about that. And so obviously the implication there was, because it's the segregated South, being an engineer was a male-dominated field, and adding to that, being an African-American and the lack of access to education were barriers. But she didn't realize that she had been insulted. She just figured, well, there's a lot for me to learn.
Young Ray vowed to become an engineer. But in Arkansas, African-American women weren't allowed to study engineering. So instead, she graduated in 1956 from Arkansas Agricultural, Mechanical, and Normal College, today Arkansas Pine Bluff, with a degree in science and business. Still determined to become an engineer, Ray headed to Washington and secured a job with the Navy as one of the few black women working in the Applied Mathematics Lab.
Even with her excellent grades, even with her college degree in business, they started off as a clerk typist, which is the lowest position. So it was not an application of her degree at all.
Ray was undaunted. Her department had computers, large and unwieldy, but for the 1950s, cutting edge. Ray learned how to work them by watching other people. Then one day, all the operators called in sick.
And so she started hitting the dials and flipping stuff. Somebody came in and pulled her away from the machine and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm operating the equipment, And they said, "Well, you're not an engineer. You're not allowed to touch this, multi-million-dollar piece of equipment here, And so I think the person thought that she was gonna get in trouble and went and reported her. And then the upper management came in to see what she was doing and said, fine, if you're good, if you can handle this, then we're going to give you more responsibilities, because apparently you know how to do this without having gone through the formal training.
Despite the discrimination she faced, Ray became an expert computer operator for the Navy in the 1950s and 1960s.
The perfect attendance for February 3rd through 7th include the following students. Teachers, please read off your student's name when it gets to your class.
Hey boys and girls, it's Miss Southwell. We're going to be talking about the word of the month, which is relationships. And we need to figure out, what can you do to build relationships? And so one of the first and most easy way you can do it is by saying something nice. Maybe you see that someone has some cool shoes and you want to just say, hey, I really like your shoes. Or it might be something like, you did a really good job in art today. Your picture was really, really cool. So you can say nice things. You can also share. When you share, it might be that you're out on the playground and somebody has a ball or needs a ball and you have one and you can let them have the ball. Or maybe in class, they don't have a red crayon, they lost theirs and they need to borrow yours. You could share that. So you can say nice things or you can share. Another thing you can do is listen. You can listen. If a person is talking to you, you might find out that they had a really bad day and they just want to tell you what happened because they're sad, or maybe they're really angry about something and they don't really want you to do anything. You can't solve their problem necessarily, but you can certainly listen to them just so they can feel better and know that somebody cares enough to worry about what's wrong with them. And another way you can build relationships is you can help them. You might notice that outside, somebody left their jacket out there and you want to grab their jacket and bring it inside for them. Or maybe someone at the cafeteria dropped their tray and they need help picking up all the things from their tray. So that would be a great way to build relationships. And then another thing you should do or can do to build relationships is be inclusive. What does that mean? That means to include other people that are around you. Maybe you see somebody on the playground that doesn't have anybody to play with. And if that's the case, you could say, hey, we're about to play kickball. You want to come? Or maybe you're going to play tag. You want to come join us? Anytime you see somebody that doesn't look like they have anybody to play with, it's always a nice thing to try to include them because it's no fun to be left out. And so anytime you're around and you notice that somebody doesn't have anybody else, that's always a way that you can feel like you can include somebody. And then once you're doing those things, then instead of it just being you, you can open this up and look. Now you have all these friends just from building relationships. So this month, for the month of February, the word is relationships. And so I challenge you to think of ways that you can build relationships with the other people in your classroom.